What's up guys, welcome back to another video. My name's Alex and today we're going to be making cheap Sector Imperialis terrain. The goal of this video was to make really cheap and really fast terrain. This terrain is way cheaper than Games Workshop's Sector Imperialis terrain. So without further ado, let's get building. To start this build, I measured out the height of my own Sector Imperialis terrain. This terrain happened to be 5 inches tall. You can make yours whatever height you want, but I prefer the 5 inches because then it's cross-compatible with Games Workshop terrain. I started by measuring out a square that was at least 5 inches tall. You can make yours however long you want, just depending on the size that you prefer. Once I was done making my box, I marked off a small section to make sure that my window would not cross that line. The next step is marking off the ruins part of it, which is just the very end of it. For this part, you can make little stair steps if you want. What I did was I made the stair steps and then I drew lines at the corner so that it makes it look a little slanted. Next, I made a big Gothic style window. You can make yours more detailed if you want, but I was really sloppy with mine, because again, the goal of this build is to be really quick. Next, I started cutting out that box. After that, I started making another box. This box was very similar to the other one that I previously made, but this one was mirroring it, so then I would have one corner. Now that I have the box all drawn out, I can start cutting it. Now that my 2 mirroring boxes are done being cut, I can do the finer details in cutting out the windows and the sides. Once your pieces are done being cut, now you can pre-fit and glue them together. You can use whatever glue you like, but I like to use hot glue because it creates a nice bond and dries very fast. Now, while the glue is drying, I like to take a triangle and square up my corners. This ensures that the top piece I'll be applying next will fit perfectly. Now the next step is adding the top piece. First, I measured out the 2 ends to see how long they would be for my top piece. Then I made a square that was that long. Now that I was done cutting out my square, I chipped away the part that was not touching the ruin itself, like the overhang part. This just gives the piece of terrain a little more character. I also beveled the edges. This makes it look like the terrain has been bashed up. Once this was done, I took a pencil and made a grid pattern on the top of the piece. This makes it look like tiles from the building that it once was. When doing this, I pressed far into the foam to make an indent, but not enough to fully cut completely through the foam. I just wanted a small indent to give it texture, and also to make the shadows pop out. Once this was done, I put a bead of glue in between the 2 original pieces just to give it a little bit more security. Then I glued the top piece on, making it flush with the other 2 pieces. Once this was done, I took one of my scrap pieces and made a little junk pile next to it. This breaks up the silhouette and makes the piece more unique. Then of course I glued it onto the side. This you may have to take into consideration when making your 2 original boxes to give it some room if you are going to add one of these little trash mounds. Then after that, I did a completely unnecessary step and used a tinfoil ball to give it texture. This part was very unnecessary, especially for the paint scheme I was using. Now, if you were using a lighter paint scheme, maybe you could use this, but I don't think that I'm going to use this again in the future. Next was painting. I base coated the entire piece in black. With the base coat done, I did a dry brushing of a medium-ish brown on the bottom parts and towards the middle of the piece of terrain. I did not use this lighter medium-ish brown on the tops. This was for the light brown. And for those of you who do not know what dry brushing is, this is basically taking your brush, getting some paint on the tip of it, and then rubbing most of it off on a paper towel or something, and then going over the piece very lightly, and this catches all the raised areas. Once this was done, I started dry brushing on the very tops and towards the middle-ish area of the piece of terrain. For this, I used a very light brown. This was almost like the dust settling on the piece of terrain, and the bottom part where I did the darker brown was like the dirt and stuff being kicked up from war. And with that final dry brush finished, we were complete with our piece of terrain. This terrain piece took me about 1 hour to build and paint. 30 minutes of building and 30 minutes of painting, but because it took such a short time to paint, I thought I would include it in this video with the build. So guys, I think with this video we accomplished our goal of creating very cheap and very fast terrain. For this I only used dollar store foam board and super cheap paints, and some glue sticks if you want to include that as well. Well guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for all the comments that you guys have been leaving for me.